Hey, welcome to episode 14 of Back to the Bronze Age. I am Count Chocula. This is my show where I cover some of my favorite comic books that I purchased and consumed as a kid. That's one of the rules for the comic books that I do cover in the show. I had to have read them and purchased them either off the spinner rack or, some back issues at the comic book stores, which really weren't a thing until right around 1980. And it kind of brings me into the comic books I'm going to be talking about tonight, which is Captain America 247, 248, 249. Now, a little backstory about my history of reading and collecting Captain America. Um, I had always read Captain America off the spinner racks whenever I could, but I purchased very few Captain Americas up until around 1980 when the comic book shop, the used bookstore in my town actually had a dedicated comic book section where you could check off the monthly list and have those comic books reserved for you. Captain America, I figured I had my fill of Captain America. In the Avengers comic book that I purchased every month, that dedicated book, and also he was also in the Invaders, which had stories from World War II. The Invaders comic book ran from like 1975, I believe, 1975, 1976 to like 1978. Wasn't a very long run. It had some popularity there for a short amount of time. Now, some of my first back issues of Captain America were from the early 70s. At one point, I had every Captain America from 1968 to 1987. By the time I was a senior in high school, I had completed my collection. Now, Captain America is one of those unique heroes that Stan Lee had nothing to do with. It predated Marvel. He was one of the original Golden Age superheroes that Marvel had. It predated Marvel. It was like Timely Comics before Marvel. It went from Timely Comics to Atlas Comics to Marvel. You had the original Human Torch. You had Namor the Submariner and Captain America were kind of like the three original, you could say Marvel Golden Age heroes. But Captain America, of course, created by Joe Simon, Jack Kirby. And they didn't they didn't resurrect his solo book until 1968. And that started at issue 100. And I actually got my hands on that issue when I was probably something like a freshman, sophomore in high school. I ended I had a friend actually shoplifted it for me. Not I didn't tell him to, but he actually stole it from the comic book store. I'm not really proud of that fact, but and it was a beautiful copy. I no longer have that. My comic book, the majority of my comic book collection from back then. But I thought it was kind of funny. I had a friend that would shoplift about anything if he knew I wanted it, and then I would give him a couple bucks for it, and then whatever. So anyway, let's get over that. But Captain America in the late 70s had fallen off. Comic books, Marvel comic books as a whole, comic books as a whole, the sales were down, but Captain America was never like a really big seller. I love some of the early 70s Captain Americas because the writer was Steve Englehart, and he had some issues regarding Watergate. There was a lot of turmoil going on in the country, and they didn't really try to politicize it too much, but they did a little bit. But they didn't take a biased position on it one way or another. They just kind of they had kind of a Watergate based story, and then they had Captain America kind of not knowing if his identity represented the ideals of America at the time, and then they had him give up his Captain America identity to go on to be Nomad. And they had those kind of storylines. But unfortunately, the Captain America comic book was plagued by deadline issues. It didn't really have a long-lasting, consistent creative team. And the quality of the book in the late 70s wasn't that great. I had every single issue. I've read every Captain America from 1968 to like 1988. And they just kind of flip-flop between artists. They never really had a good creative team. Well, that kind of changed in 1980, late 1980. Let's just get right into it here. Let's just get right into the first book I'm going to be talking about. Here's the cover. Byrne Strucker Strikes. This is Captain America 247, and this is the beginning of the Roger Stern, John Byrne, Joseph Rubinstein inking creative team. Now, John Byrne was just about ready to leave the X-Men at this point. And everyone knows he went on to do that legendary 5-year run on Fantastic Four, which we'll get to some of those issues down the road. It's John Byrne, right? I'm never going to have any shortage of great John Byrne golden age comic books to cover here. So Roger Stern had been the editor on the book for a number of years, and so he decided, but he wasn't happy. They were having deadline issues. Jim Shooter took over editor-in-chief sometime in 1978. They wanted to rectify those deadline issues. They were having really, you could tell by when you were reading Captain America. I would read it, and then the next month I'd go to the grocery store and read, and it would be a fill-in issue. And too many fill-in issues is a death for the sales of a comic book. People just didn't want to, wait that extra month, for a fill-in issue that might have been from a different writer, different artist. Deadlines weren't being made, make a long story short. So let's get right in here. So Roger Stern decided to, this is going to be a 2-part episode, by the way, because this is a 9-issue run. I'd love to cover all 9 issues. I'm not going to. I'm going to cover the first 3 where Roger Stern and John Byrne take over. And then I'm going to cover in the second part of this, and in part 2 of this episode, I'm going to be covering my 2 favorite issues by that creative team. So let's get right into it here. By Dawn's Early Light. Now, you have to bear with me. I've been battling the flu for the last week, so I'm going to try to keep the coughing and the snorting and the wheezing and the hacking to a minimum here. But so this might be a little difficult to get through, but let me zoom in here. By Dawn's Early Light, you can see Roger Stern, John Byrne, writer, co-plotter. To finish my thought, Roger Stern had been the editor on the book for the last couple of years, and he resigned as editor and said, I want to write the book. He wasn't happy with the stories he was getting. Like I said, they were having deadline issues. So he said, I'm going to get my buddy John Byrne. They were friends. So talk about bringing heat to a comic book. John Byrne, that's a good way to do it. John Byrne, he dedicates himself to the book. I have read some interviews that they had in comic book magazines throughout the last couple decades where Roger Stern gets questioned about this 9-issue run a lot. And he's got some interesting takes, and I'll cover that more in part 2 of this in the next episode that I do. So Roger Stern, John Byrne, writers, co-plotters, pencils, and then you have Joseph Rubinstein as the inker, who is right up there with one of my favorite inkers when it comes to John Byrne. He just does a wonderful finish. There's some inkers, some great inkers that don't mesh well with John Byrne's work. Klaus Janson, I never liked when Klaus Janson ink John Byrne. It just it wasn't a good fit. Of course, Terry Austin is the optimal inker for most all the Marvel artists, but John Byrne in particular. Joseph Rubinstein, I'd put him right up there as number 2 or number 3. Pablo Marcus would be up there too, but Joseph Rubinstein, as you can see, there's a new editor of the book, Jim Salicrup, and we'll talk about Jim Salicrup a little bit later, in part 2, because there is a whole story kind of drama that goes on that that kind of leads to this only being a 9-issue run, which a lot of fans had a problem with. And as you can see, Jim Shooter, editor in chief. So as you can see here, now I'm not going to read every panel and every page, every speech balloon or whatever, because some of my voice will hold out. But as you can see right here, they've got Captain America running over the bridge-wide pedestrian walkway. Since its opening in 1883, Brooklyn Bridge has been revered in song and fable. It is once a gateway and a monument, a great architectural wonder linking the boroughs of Brooklyn and Manhattan. I don't believe it. It's Captain America. And just a nice little intro for a new creative team, and they waste no time here. And you can see the joggers, and then there's a bike rider and everything. And they're not used to seeing Captain America running here on the boardwalk here of the Brooklyn Bridge. He says moving to Brooklyn Heights was one of the smartest things I've ever done. Not only is it a good neighborhood, but its proximity to the bridge provides me easy access to Manhattan. So I guess they given Captain America kind of a fresh start here. And he's going to be taking the bus here. I'm certain that S.H.I.E.L.D. holds the key that will put my mind at ease once for all. That bus should do nicely. He says in the previous panel, I heard that, young lady. I wish I was as sure of my own head as I was of my principles. As a matter of fact, my peace of mind or lack of same is the motivating force behind this early morning junket. So it says Supreme Headquarters. Good neighborhood. He means white, right? Oh, hey, Janzer. I do stream this live on YouTube. I have an audio version on Spotify, but come on, Cap, go where the crime is. The crime always finds him, That's funny. Yeah, I saw you guys were playing. I saw you guys were in the chat on your channel. You must have been playing Division or something. I don't know. Then I saw Volts was starting to stream XCOM, which kind of got me interested because that new Marvel game is coming out. That's like XCOM-like. It is and it isn't, but this is really a stroke of luck. Transit Authority buses don't usually use Brooklyn Bridge. Okay. They must be ferrying this one into the city as a replacement. Well, whatever the circumstances, it should help me on my way. Now, this is kind of funny. I remember this. In high school, this was some of my Dawn's Early Light. I'm here for it. In high school, I really loved these. I had all 9 issues of these, of course. I had every Captain America from 1968 to 1987 when I was, by the time I was out of high school. And I graduated in 87. But I was a big Honeymooners fan, and this is funny. Uptown Broadway and 75th. Hey, pardon me, sir. Which way are you headed? Fine, I'll get off at Midtown. Yeah, sure. And Captain America, upstanding citizen. He's just not going to hitch a ride like Spider-Man would. He's going to pay. Spider-Man wouldn't pay. He'd just hop the bus. He wouldn't need to hop the bus, though. So Alice will never believe this. That's John Byrne, Roger Stern's little ode to the Honeymooners there. You'll see John Byrne, whenever John Byrne takes over a book, he was always big on like doing the meta aspect. Somehow he'll interject some sort of meta aspect to the book. Of course, he went over the top with She-Hulk when he took it over in 1988, but he always does that, and you'll see an example of that later. He says, I can use the bus's momentum to launch me to the rooftops. So he is headed somewhere. Memories, it's funny the way little things will trigger them, like the way the surprise party that Josh Cooper threw me, that's one of his neighbors in his apartment building, threw for Steve Rogers last week, reminded me of my 16th birthday. Jackie Gleason, probably one of my all-time favorite entertainers or whatever. I love Jackie Gleason. I watched that Jackie Gleason back in early 2000. They had the dude from I can't remember his name. It was some kind of it was a sitcom from a stand-up comedian where he was in. He's a real tall dude, but he did Jackie Gleason. They did a Jackie Gleason like life story movie thing in early 2000. I think it was just called Gleason, but Raymond. What was that show? Raymond. God, I can't remember. Anyway, this is CCAP 245. That's 2 issues ago. And Jim, that's not Jim Shooter. That's Jim Salicrup is the editor of the Captain America book. No, Raymond. He was Ray Romano. What was that show? Everybody Loves Raymond. Is that what it was? Yeah, his co-star guy, the big tall guy, he played Jackie Gleason in the documentary. Sorry, my nose is running here. I'm still fighting off the residuals of this flu. I feel better than I thought I was going to. Yeah, Ray Romano. Something about the party clicked, and I think there's probably about a 20-second delay, chat-wise, the latency. Streaming here to YouTube. I tried to do the settings to cut it down as much as I could, but there's a limit to it. Something about the party clicked, and I vividly remember a brief period of my boyhood as Steve Rogers, but in that flash of memory, I saw myself growing up in New York. That contradicts the lost memories which Dr. Harding's mind probe machine restored to me. Something is wrong, and I've got to find out. I guess I've always been a little uneasy about the little blank spots in my memory. It's just that I was always too busy to let them worry me. And he's going all the way back to Cap 225. This is, according to Roger Stern, in interviews that I've read over the last few decades, of Roger Stern talking in depth about this 9-issue run. This was... a lot of the readers had a problem with the lack of continuity of a Captain America book over the years. The editorial process wasn't stringent enough, and they let writers come in because, like I said, they were always flip-flopping creative teams in the 70s, Captain America, to the detriment of the book. Now, there are some cool earlier 70s Captain America stories, but there's no consistency. So they let some of the writers have some liberties, and the continuity got screwed up. This is John Byrne. John Byrne is Mr. Fix-It. He'll come in and waste no time getting the continuity back on track. He'll do a whole issue to try to set things right. And that's what Roger Stern and John Byrne are doing right here. Because it'll be self-explanatory later. But the latest memory mystery has been bothering me all week. I've got to clear it up at once. I don't have the time to waste on my past. Sal B was here, the graffiti. That is a nod to Sal Buscema, who probably had the longest run art-wise of Captain America in the 70s. Not while I'm trying to build a future for Steve Rogers. I always liked when Sal Buscema did the book, but then they had Frank Robbins also do the artwork, and then they had an endless string of different artists, and it was terrible. Frank Robbins wasn't good. He was way past his prime, more of a Silver Age artist, and just wasn't good. He was the one that did the Invaders. He was the artist on the Invaders. Boldly Cap races down the deserted alleyway at breakneck speed, running straight at a dead-end wall. What on earth? And through it. It's a good thing my present-day memory isn't faulty. I'd have felt pretty foolish if that had been a real brick wall and not a hologram disguising the entrance to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Manhattan installation. Hey, Portal Security, fall in on the double. Okay, they're not going to recognize Captain America? Hold it right there, Agent. In case you haven't heard, the National Security Council recently returned full clearance to bearers of the Avengers Priority Card. That's through that, the Avengers were having that conflict with the government. The government was trying to curtail the Avengers. Not quite like the Civil War, what was depicted in the Civil War movie or anything like that. But they were restricted. They were being restricted by the government. Yes, sir, but nothing. I need some information from your director, and I don't intend to wait around for it. You're going to cut through the red tape and take me to the office. Is that clear? That is, yes, sir. Right away, sir. But I don't think Colonel Fury's going to like this. Yeah, the relationship between Captain America and S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of sketchy at best during this time period in Marvel Comics. So here we have just some character development that you're going to see about the fellow tenants that Steve Rogers has in his apartment building. That moment in the innermost offices of S.H.I.E.L.D. Look alive, Fury. I want words with you. Well, we don't see Nick Fury here. We've got Dum Dum Dugan, who is also depicted in the Captain America movie in MCU. They actually have done, and they actually do that pretty well. I like the actor. I don't know who it is, but they even make him resemble the comic book character. Then you're going to have to wait, Cap. Fury ain't here. He left me in charge. Is there anything Mrs. Dugan's little boy can do for you? I don't know, Dum Dum. I always love that. Dum Dum Dugan. I need some specific information, and, well, it's a pretty long story. So try me. Mama always said I was a good listener. So the memories that Harding's machine restored are highly detailed. They tell me that I was the son of a diplomat, that I grew up in Maryland, that I had a brother, Mike, who died at Pearl Harbor. It's all very vivid and detailed, but it just doesn't feel right. Now the Army's records seem to substantiate that the Steve Rogers who grew up in Maryland. But that don't mean a thing. Army records can be doctored, believe me. I'd say you've got yourself a serious problem if you can't trust your own noggin. Exactly. I must know my own mind. So he says he'll radio Nick and see if he can join us. Nick Fury, of course, as soon as he finishes his other business. Meanwhile, in a federal maximum security prison just outside Ithaca, New York, I think that's Ithaca, New York, that other business is about to get underway. And there you see the Ferrari of Nick Fury, and we know what the capabilities of that is. It can fly, damn it. Guten Morgen, Herr Colonel. I'm assuming that's good morning. We see a kind of a silhouetted figure at the door here. If you can trust anyone, boy, you can trust Dum Dum. I mean, with a name like Dum Dum, I don't know his real name in the comic books. Now I'm worried about it. It can't be Dum Dum. Who knows? His mother might have named him Dum Dum. It has it that, Byrne. It has it that. I'm sure you realize that we have quite a bit to talk about. This could take a while. Why don't you have a seat? Thank you. No, I prefer to stand. After all, we can't have the world thinking that Baron Strucker has grown old and weak now, can we? Baron Strucker also was depicted in the MCU in the Age of Ultron Avengers movie. But, he's more of a substantial Captain America villain than they, they're not going to, just like they did with Ulysses Claw. They're going to make him some sort of side character when he's really actually a main Marvel comic book character, villain, whatever. You have to admit, I never thought I'd see you looking this good again, especially since the last time I saw you took a dive into the alpha particle reactor cube on Hydra Island and were burnt to a cinder all the way back in Strange Tales 158 and Cap 130, 131. So Captain America 130, 131 would have been about 1971, 1972. So it's been a while since we've seen Byrne Strucker. Leave it to John Byrne, Roger Stern to start resurrecting some of the classic, villains. Something that wasn't done in the late 70s run of Captain America. There wasn't a lot. I mean, they had some Red Skull treatment in the mid 70s, and then it just kind of, the stories kind of went off the rail a little bit, and it kind of had some. They didn't have a direction for the Captain America comic book. It's evident if you read a lot of those stories. So imagine my surprise when you turned up later, the bloom of health to give Captain America a hard time. Yeah, Captain America 131, 131. Colonel, I am honored that you have finally decided to take a personal interest in me, but I've been grilled by your SHIELD interrogation squads for the past 2 years. I have not told them how I survived, and I shall not tell you. Is that so? Oh my God, White Nick Fury. Won't tell your old war buddy, huh? Hardly. Well, Otto, I'm sort of glad you said that, because it means you're not my problem anymore. You see, these special waivers here are approved by the West Germans. You're being extradited to Israel. I hear those war crime trials are really something. And I love the look on Byrne Strucker's face here going, oh, boy, I'm going to pay for my war crimes. Excuse me a minute, Otto. That beat means official business. Fury here. It's Dum Dum Nick. Cap finally showed, just like you figured. And as you can see here, this cool panel here, Strucker is taking something out of his shirt here. Okay, man. Okay, you take the man out to Fort Dix. I'll meet you there as soon as I'm done. Fury out. An appropriate closing here, Colonel. You're going out right now. What? A gas grenade? How'd you get that? If he's been in custody of SHIELD for so long, I mean, how could he possibly have a gas grenade? You'll find out. You shall never know, Fury. You shall simply die. You and that Verdammt, I guess I'm saying that right. That damn Captain America, Verdammt. Short time later at Fort Dix, New Jersey, Dum Dum Dugan, unaware of Fury's peril, leads Cap to an all but forgotten storage depot. Took us forever to turn this up. Sometimes I think the Army loses stuff on purpose. Anyway, a data check of old classified records uncovered this thing. It's been here since the war ended, I guess. Well, I'll be my old Army footlocker. I'd wonder whatever happened to it. I don't suppose. Yes, there it is. And a little bit of a nostalgia here of Captain America's original SHIELD. Another Roger Stern, John Byrne thing. They're going to bring back a little bit of nostalgia. My first SHIELD, it still fits like a glove. I only used it for a few months, Yeah, here, let me see that. Nice metal work, but how'd you ever throw this sucker? I didn't. It was almost purely a defensive weapon. Hey, wait a minute. I like this panel here. This is cool. This is just what the doctor ordered. If this doesn't set things straight, nothing will. My old war journal. Yeah, Captain America's never looked better here, in my opinion. From old John Byrne, Joseph Rubinstein. So we have a flashback here. Here, this is the entry I was looking for. Christmas Eve, 1941. Yes, it's all coming back to me. Today I was summoned. So here we go with, I understand that you're about to go overseas with this new supergroup, the Invaders. See invaders number 1. There exists a chance that you could be captured by the Nazis and tortured into revealing top secret information. So that he's kind of laying why they're going to give Captain America some false memories here, just in case he gets captured by the Nazis. And this is a flashback to early 1940s, which the invaders depict those stories. Got to remember, Captain America suspended animation for decades and the iceberg. So here we go. December 27th. I've spent the last 2 days in a chamber that looked like something out of H.G. Wells. Thinking of it still makes me uneasy. It's all coming back to him. My name is Stephen Grant Rogers. My father is a diplomat. His name is Walter. My mother's name is Elizabeth. My brother died at Pearl Harbor. I have no idea how many false memories they plugged into me. I pray I never find out. I'm not sure why he would, this is probably a more young, naive Captain America, Steve Rogers. Hasn't quite been jaded. The Steve Rogers that came out of the iceberg into more of the modern day is much different than has much different sensibilities than the the World War II Captain America. He's much more cynical today, with good reason. That's it. Dr. Harding's mind probe triggered those pre-programmed false memories. Thank heaven I remember now. I remember it all. My middle name's not Grant. I never had a middle name, and I didn't grow up in Maryland. Find what you're looking for, Cap. So this is Roger Stern's and John Byrne's, way to integrate into the story, to try to clear up the Captain America inconsistencies of the continuity. And this is this is not my speculation. This is what Roger Stern said. What the devil? There's a sound going here. That sounds like Fury's flying Ferrari, but it's coming in awful fast. I don't get it. What's the hurry? So, Captain America, I have found you at last. Now we shall finish the battle that we started years ago. We shall finish it with your death. There's a cool little splash panel here of the flying Ferrari coming in. Of course, that's not Fury at the wheel. And I always loved Fury's flying car. And as you can see, Captain America has been separated from his shield. So how in the hell is they're going to rectify that? Baron Strucker, what hole did you crawl out of? How'd you get a hold of Fury's flying car, and where's Fury? Questions, my dear Capitan. You are so full of questions. It's a pity you'll receive no answers, at least not in this life. Blast. His one-man blitzkrieg separated me from my shield. Without it, I'm a sitting duck. Cap, over here. We got to find out what he's done with Nick, but that jalopy has more armament than a half dozen tanks. I read you, dum-dum. Our only chance is to draw him out of the car. I should have known you'd be ahead of me in strategy. Take this. I'll keep you covered. Ouch, I felt that blast. This old shield doesn't have the impact-absorbing properties of my round one. I can't get any closer. Looks like I have to make this shot count. Grabbing up a chunk of the shattered concrete floor, Cap desperately hurls it into the left front wheel. The odds against his connecting are 1,000,000 to 1. But he's Captain America. He beats the odds. Looks like it damaged the stabilizer. Did it with one propulsion unit out. Strucker didn't have time to compensate with the car's aero controls. Fool, your little stunt will not stop me. I am still a master of weaponry. I love that. I love that picture right there. Him coming out blasting of the vertical doors of the Ferrari. And the arsenal in Colonel Fury's vehicle is more than adequate to deal with you swine. Dum-dum. This dum-dum gets blasted. It's always in the shoulder, right? Excuse me. Good old dum-dum. Dum-dum, are you? I'm okay. Don't worry about it. Blast it. Get Strucker. The shield, that old shield is taking a beating. Strucker, if you had shred of sense, you drop those guns right now, or otherwise I'm going to take you apart. Most amusing threat, Capitan. Capitan, I don't know how I'm saying it. But from where I stand, something else is coming apart. Ugh, no good. At this close range, my shield is starting to buckle under his concussion blast. Great picture there. Damn, John Byrne. John Byrne's just killing it. I'll have to try a little distracting maneuver. Eh? And he tried the shield. The shield just, it's not meant to be thrown. Appear that your old shield is somewhat lacking, Capitan. It does not even bounce back to you. I didn't think it would, Strucker. But I did think that you turned to watch it. Thanks for living up to my expectations. And now we're both unarmed. Let's see how that fine Prussian jaw stands up to a good old American left hook. I'm betting that it won't. You patriotic idiot. Baron Strucker is never unarmed. Behold the Satan Claw. That is his weapon. Once more, its electrified might is mine. Once more, Baron Strucker is supreme. Incredible. How did he fit that claw under his jumpsuit glove? It's almost as if the thing unfolded from his hand. Funny. Because normally Baron Strucker didn't conceal the Satan Claw. So it's got Captain America thinking something's not right. But while Cap concentrates on evading Strucker's high-voltage fist, within the battered Ferrari, a crumpled figure stirs. So he brought Fury with him. Oh, what happened? Blaze of Strucker, he's wearing my combat gear, and he's giving Cap a real tussle with his crummy Satan Claw. Strucker's my old enemy. Fighting him ought to be my job. But I'm still too groggy from his gas attack. The important thing is stopping Strucker. He's too dangerous. Cap, catch him. Nick, good to see that you're still among the living. Oh, no, I disagree, Strucker. Oh, he says, bah, that will do you no good. Oh, no, I disagree, Strucker. When it comes down to my shield, my regular shield versus your Satan Claw, I don't think there's even much of a contest. Do you? I'm not even going to unglablance. I have no idea. Gee whiz, man. Maybe Roger Stern researched some German word. Maybe he knows German. I don't know. The claw's mechanism has been shattered, destroyed, but this one was designed to be even mightier than the original. You have bested me once again, Capitan, but I promise you this, you have not heard the last of Wolfgang von Strucker. Baron, long ago I resigned myself to never hearing the last of men like you. Just remember this, if you show up again, I'll be around to stop you. In that case, you can relax, Cap. The only way you'll hear from this crumb, he sends you a postcard from Tel Aviv. In fact, I think I'll just escort the Baron there personally. You think so, do you, Fury? Something's wrong. Something is wrong here. Strucker is taking this far too calmly, but he has no hope of escaping. What's he up to? You shall never deliver me to the accursed Juden, Colonel Jew. I guess that's how, the Jews is what he's saying. Israel. The final triumph shall be mine. Say how. As you can see, Baron Strucker, there's a little clicking mechanism in his boots, and he just blows himself up, commits suicide, or does he? No, it's happening again. For the second time in weeks, the man I've been fighting is a robot. You mean we've had a robot locked up and didn't even know it? The first time was the manipulator in Cap 242. I remember the manipulator. He had like a dual. His head has like dual faces on it that kind of rotate around. But I remember that issue's not really a good issue. I'm afraid so, Nick. But if there's someone out there who can make robots that realistic in appearance, what will they throw at us next? Tut tut, Captain, and you're seeing the reveal of the actual character behind all this. Tut tut, Captain. That would be telling. And if there's one thing the Machine Smith likes to keep, it's the element of surprise. But I must admit, Captain America is more his most resourceful adversary. In fact, he might be just the man I need for my next series of tests. Machinesmith, sir. Excavation is nearly complete. We're unearthing the prime subject now. Excellent. What prime subject are they talking about? You can't really see the limited detail here on the view screen, but you can see all the there's the manipulator right there. This robot here with the dual faces with the head. Yep. And you've got Magneto, and then you've got Iron Man, and then you've got Ben Grimm here with no head, and then Spider-Man. Yes, most excellent. I think that the prime subject will prove to be the one opponent even Captain America cannot beat, though I'm certain that he will die trying. The man who makes robots, The Private Life of Stephen Rogers, and more. Whatever you do, don't miss A Dragon in the Night, next issue. They give you a huge hint there of what the prime subject is. So let's just get right on to issue 248. That was the first issue of Roger Stern and John Byrne taking over this book. And the sales went up. The sales exploded on Captain America as a result. I mean, Captain America, it wasn't any fear of being, it was still a top 10 book in sales wise, but it wasn't any fear of being canceled or anything, but it was, the sales were slumping down. I mean, I know Iron Man and, the Hulk was on TV at the time, but Captain America, actually, they tried to get Captain America on TV. I'll talk about that when I bring up the next issue here. Caught in the Clutches of Dragon Man. So the cover, great John Byrne cover here of Dragon Man. But you don't think it was why would Dragon Man be fighting Captain America? He was, I believe Dragon Man was introduced in the pages of Fantastic Four in the 60s. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure the first appearance of that character, he's not really a character, he's an android. It's a giant dragon-like robot. Caught in the Clutches. Great John Byrne Rubenstein cover here. And I love the texture that they put on Dragon Man in the printing of the cover there. So let's get right into it. So, of course, they're going to have a little recap of last issue. As you can see, Baron Strucker, android form, is here and they're analyzing it. Well, Gaffer, Nicholas, in all my years, I have never seen such a sophisticated robot. And these panels up here are just giving a little recap of what we just saw. Hey, watch it with them bandages. That's my bowling arm. Rogers, yes, sir, Agent Dugan. Dum-dum. Roger Stern and John Byrne, writer, co-plotters, penciler. Roger Stern, John, it's no secret that John Byrne would butt heads with his writing collaboration. He butted heads with, famously butted heads with Chris Claremont on X-Men, which ended up resulting in him leaving X-Men. He just didn't, when everything was clicking, it was awesome. It was epic. But John Byrne would always try to, he always liked some input on the story and how the characters are developed and everything. He cares. He actually, sometimes people will mistake, like control issues of Jim Shooter's the big guy. I hear he gets 10%. We got Jim Salicrumbs as the editor again, and then Jim Shooter, the big guy. Oh, okay. Well, he was the big guy. Yeah, and much to some of the dismay of some of the creators coming up in the following years, he became a little bit too much of the big guy. And that also, I'll save it for part 2 of the story of why this run that was getting all this heat on this book and the fans were going crazy over it. Still considered one of the best like short runs in Marvel Comics. And why it came to an end after only 9 issues. I'll cover all that later. But yeah, you got Jim Salicrup and Jim Shooter. But John Byrne, when he takes a job, he says, when I take a job, I get inside of it. I get underneath it. I just don't. He'll never just go through the motions. He said he'll leave the book before he does that. So and if there's too much headbutting with the collaboration, with the writer, plotter, whatever, then he'll leave. He likes things the way he likes them. And the smart money is to go by John Byrne. John Byrne sells books, so and Roger Stern understands that. They were friends, so this is all coming from John. This is all coming from Byrne interviews. Even though I've not read a whole lot of Byrne stuff on this particular 9-issue run, I've not heard him talk about it a lot. Roger Stern says he gets questioned about this when he goes to conventions all the time. It's the number one thing that people bring to have him sign. It'll be issues from this run. And Roger Stern's done a lot. He did a lot of Spider-Man. He did a lot. He was a renowned writer for Marvel. So, but he said he gets questions about this all the time. And he said he never butted heads with John Byrne. He said the smart money is go with John Byrne's instincts because it produces results. So I'm not sure how I got off on that tangent. I can't remember. Imagine that. Let's get on with it before my voice goes. This is a lot of words. S.H.I.E.L.D., to sum this up, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury were famously, they introduced the idea of life model decoys, the LMDs. He says these are making our S.H.I.E.L.D. LMDs look like Tinker Toys. Nick Fury famously would put himself out in public as a life model decoy. He did it with anybody that collaborated with S.H.I.E.L.D. That was one of the things. You would have extra security because, if there was some sort of villain trying to assassinate some agent or something trying to assassinate Nick Fury, it's a good chance you're going to get a robot first. That's kind of like the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent's line of defense. So this guy's saying, these things make our life model decoys look like Tinker Toys. He says, Gaff, give me a full report on this thing's innards and see if you can come up with some way of telling them apart from ordinary flesh and blood folks. Can't do, Nicholas. It may take a few days, though. I thought I'd seen everything, Nick. How could anyone possibly develop a robot this complex? But even as Cap speaks, deep within the robot's skull, a cluster of circuits still function, transmitting sight and sound to a laboratory miles distant. How? Why, I specialize, Captain. Robots are my business. But not my only business. Alone in the chamber, Machine Smith laughs. Oh, we're going to have some... We got Jim Salicrup doing some rehashing here. I want to know if there's any connection between this thing and the manipulator robot that Cap fought last month. That was already Cap 242. Or that LMD hassle I had, Defenders 54. I know that one as well. That one is Keith Giffen doing art on the Defenders. I'm going to be covering a few of those down the road. Love Keith Giffen. The leaps which science has made in my lifetime never ceases to amaze me. I've fought dozens of robots in my day. I've even fought alongside synthetic men like the original Human Torch and the Vision. The Vision is actually, the body of the Vision is actually molded after the original Human Torch in the comic books. But I'll never get used to the way man continues to mimic nature. Hey, is it my imagination, or did Strucker's eyes just move? Wait a minute. What if the robot's sensory circuits are still working, spying on us? And why would someone who could build such a complicated device leave us enough of the remains to examine unless it's booby trapped? Down, get under cover fast. Cap, what's wrong? Very good, Captain. You're every bit capable of, as I've heard. Ta-ta, and you got the full destruct button there. I'm not sure why Nick Fury would not think that would be possible. Nice little panel there. Boom. Oi, give I that is that some Hebrew? I don't know what that is. I can't. I'm not my dialect knowledge is terrible. There was still an active destruct circuit in the robot. I'm afraid that's not all that was active, Gaffer. I'm certain that our mysterious robot maker heard our every word. Not much left to examine now, is there? But as Cap and the Gaffer approached the cooling slag, it's some sort of data module. Stop it. Shoot it down, soldier. Yeah, nice shot. Missed it. Too late, sir. It's already out of range. Must be Lee Harvey Oswald there. All right. Sorry. You call that shooting? I had forgotten about this, getting berated by Fury there. You call that shooting? If we'd had marksmen like you back in the big one, we'd all be speaking German today. Oh, yes, sir. Take it easy, Nick. It wasn't his fault. We were all caught napping. I'm sure we'll eventually get another lead on this robot maker. Yeah, I mean, that's Fury's fault for leaving it out in the open. Why didn't he order it concealed immediately? What do you mean we, mister? This is S.H.I.E.L.D. business. I'll handle this. Oh, like you handled that government plan to take control of Stark International? See Iron Man 119 to 129. That's a low blow, Cap. So Cap and Fury kind of make up here. Their handshake. You got my word. You'll be the first to know. Listen, you old warhorse, take care of yourself. You hear? There goes one troubled man. It must gall Fury, a straightforward as Joe as he is, to be saddled with all this intrigue and secrecy that goes with being head honcho of S.H.I.E.L.D. That must be the dirtiest job in the world. Hey, Cap, I'm all patched up and ready to roll. Can I give you a lift any place? Thanks, dum-dum. Yes, you can. Drop me off at Avengers Mansion. Meanwhile, miles away, the Machine Smith's hidden lab complex. Yes, indeed. Captain America's most capable. I wish I'd kept a closer monitor tap on my Strucker robot. Ah, well, I shall have my data soon. I believe I hear it coming soon. I believe I hear it coming now. Hello, little gadget. Well, I haven't seen you since I sealed you inside that wicked robot Byrne, and that was for a couple years. Have you brought me all the wonderful information you absorbed from him? Excellent. Just plug yourself into my central synapses system, and we'll analyze all that lovely data. There's a good little gadget. Striding swiftly through the huge complex, Machine Smith finally comes to an elevated overlook in a massive loading dock. Ah, I see the excavation of the prime subject has yielded results. I trust that he is intact. Yes, he is, sir. Good. I'm coming down. Activate in-mode programming. These guys return to the storage area and deactivate until further notice. So everyone is an android under the Machine Smith. Click. We hear and obey. Beginning deactivation mode. Click. So saying the crew of 4 mechanically marches into a nearby storage room and shuts off. Gotta get a drink real quick. Oh, I really like revisiting these classic issues. I love these. I remember I did not buy these issues, these 3 issues that I'm going over off the spinner rack. I ended up getting these as from a friend. One of my buddies in the neighborhood traded me for these 3 issues. Now, the 2 issues that I'm going to cover in part 2 of my video are my 2 favorite issues from this 9-issue run. I just wanted to give an introduction. I just wanted to kind of show, the transition of what a great creative team can do, kind of give the first three issues. But my two favorite issues, I'm going to cover in part two, and those are two that I actually did buy off of the spinner rack. I believe it was early '81 at that point. And then I really started getting into Captain America. I had maybe by 1981, I maybe had 30 issues, 30, 40 issues of Captain America. Every once in a while, I'd get one off the spinner rack in the late 70s when I had extra, had an extra option that month. But the good thing about the Captain America is they weren't highly regarded, and you could find the back issues for very cheap. Like the majority of the back issues that I would buy, in the early 80s of all the 70s issues, they weren't expensive. Like you could get them for like 75 cents a piece. So I didn't have to pay $3-4 an issue like you would normally have to pay for going back a decade of back issues. But I really got into Captain America after reading this run in the early 80s. As we can see, Machine Smith here. At long last, he's mine. Ever since I learned that he had not been destroyed, I knew I had to have him, had to control him, had to have his power at my command. And here's the awesome reveal of the Dragon Man. Really cool. Man, that's just awesome. That's an awesome picture. And Joseph Rubinstein really does a nice job, kind of a soft touch on John Byrne's. There's a lot of John Byrne's original penciling that comes through more so. I mean, it's the same with Terry Austin. Terry Austin just makes it look more beautiful. There's some inkers that kind of are a little too heavy-handed for John Byrne's, and you can tell Klaus Jansen's one of those. I remember an issue of the Avengers that John Byrne did that Klaus Jansen inked. And I loved Klaus Jansen. He's best known for being the inker of Frank Miller on the Daredevil run. But he's one of the top 5 inkers of all time, in my opinion. But I never liked his finishes of John Byrne's work for some reason. It just didn't look right. It detracted from John Byrne's pencils, in my opinion. Some people are probably like, "Oh, you're crazy," but that's just my opinion. He deceptively his deceptively delicate hands ripping at the binding ropes. The mad robot maker quickly yanks back the protective canvas, revealing the comatose form of the being known as Dragon Man. I couldn't remember if I read that or not, but I was just I was geeking out over the picture. That's just an awesome picture. Wonder how long it took John Byrne to draw that. I mean, that's freaking awesome. Oh, this is too rich. It's a matter of hours. One of the mightiest synthetic beings on the face of the earth will be mine to command. The good Captain America has been fit to defeat 2 of my robotic creations, Strucker and the Manipulator. I wonder how he will fare against my new acquisition. Will he die slowly or all at once? Ha ha ha. Little over the top evil there from Machine Smith. So here we go. We little bit of a kind of a scene here. Just giving a rundown of Steve Rogers' normal life. And John Byrne, they actually made Captain America, who was a commercial artist, but they actually made him a comic book artist. That's a little meta that thrown in from Byrne and Roger Stern and John Byrne here. But he's still having, as you can see, they're kind of run down there. He's having a hard time like keeping consistent work. He says seemingly endless hours of waiting in tiny reception rooms and then giving his portfolio. It also gave him an excuse with the portfolio briefcase here to carry his shield. for a while they had him actually carry his shield in the portfolio briefcase. They also gave him a new girlfriend, where he gets introduced right here. Steve, I want you to meet a friend of mine from college, Bernie Rosenthal. Pleased to meet you, Bernie. It's short for Bernadette, Steve, and believe me, the pleasure is all mine. So this is going to be Captain America's or Steve Rogers' new main squeeze here. His old main squeeze, Sharon Carter, was perceived dead. She was an agent for Shield, and he didn't know it. And they had a whole long storyline of how she became mind controlled, and then she ends up dying. But did she really die? I mean, they had an ongoing storyline in the 70s, mid to late 70s about that. She's depicted in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She's the blonde Sharon Carter. I think it's Agent 47 or something like that. But that was normally his main squeeze in the comic book. I'm going to be moving in across the hall, so I guess we'll be neighbors. Well, he's thinking, yeah, okay, well, I've got other ideas in mind. Yeah, that's what Josh was saying. Well, I'm sure you'll like it here. This is a very good area. Oh, I know. Say, you've got one too. One what? A cleft in your chin. And while the two neighbors get better acquainted, miles away in Machine Smith's lair. Incredible. After all those months of lying buried underground, Dragon Man still clings to life. The great beast has merely lapsed into a dormant state, just waiting for the spark that will return him to full vitality. I get the feeling John Byrne likes drawing Dragon Man. But to throw the switch to return the Dragon Man to the living. Just throw the switch and I shall restore his life. Yes, life, a life more real and true than this existence I am forced to endure. I can no longer even cry. So something's going on here. He's giving a little hint on what's going on here. You hear? Even tears are denied me, all because of men like Captain America. That is why we must know the true meaning of death. That he must know the true meaning of death. It was a jolt of energy here. The switch thrown, Machine Smith's device sends millions of volts of energy rippling through the huge gray form, prodding the inactive behemoth back to full conscious life. Angry life. His last memory is one of battle in just such a complex as this. Fantastic Four 135. Yep. Wasn't the first appearance of Dragon Man, but that was I guess the last encounter in Marvel Comics. Yeah, Dragon Man was always pretty much a Fantastic Four villain. Ungrateful wretch. I gave you life and you repay me with violence? No, what am I saying? Your mind is barely that of a child's. Gadget 12, come here. Now, Dragon Man, let's see how you react to my little toy. Like a darting, weaving hummingbird, the shimmering spear buzzes the great beast's head, emitting a soothing ultrasonic wave. So this is how Machine Smith is going to control Dragon Man, kind of like King Kong. Yes, you like the pretty little bauble, don't you? Excellent. Gadget 12, you have your programming. Your tracking circuits have all the data on Captain America, his aura pattern, his scent, his mass displacement. Lead Dragon Man, his carbon emissions. No, that's coming. Lead Dragon Man to him and initiate the attack mode. Try to leave my jokes out of it. Within moments, the chamber is shaken by the backwash of air from Dragon Man's mighty wings. And then fly, my friends, fly. Show Captain America what it means to play with the Machine Smith. Hours later, a certain dinner in Brooklyn Heights has given way to coffee and conversation. Oh, I'll admit that Springsteen's done some great stuff, but Costello is still my fave. Elvis Costello. Especially with Nick Lowe producing. Don't you agree, Steve? And right now at WNEW-FM, it's time for Robin Sagan and news. Thank you, Vin. Well, we've been getting reports and all evening of a strange flying object buzzing certain buildings in Midtown Manhattan, including in those sightings are the Werscholz, the Goodman, and the Hartley buildings. That's funny. I visited all those buildings today in that very order. Oh, don't tell me we're in for another UFO scare. So it's tracking Steve Rogers. If I didn't know better, I'd almost think someone was tracking me. But no, that's ridiculous. That man certainly knows how to move. Just walking across the room, he looks like he's ready for anything. This is what Byrne is thinking. I don't think I've met anyone with that much presence. Glancing up from the stereo receiver, Steve's gaze is suddenly drawn to a fleeting silhouette. What on earth? Got to check this out immediately. Excuse me, Byrne, folks, I have to run. Just remember an important errand. Knocks the coffee out of Byrne Rosenthal's hand there. Well, that was certainly abrupt. Yeah, well, I wouldn't take it too personally, Byrne. I mean, Steve's not the rude type. He just tends to keep things to himself at times. Steve? No answer. Funny, I could have sworn he headed upstairs, and you can see the silhouette where he's already transformed into Captain America and went out the window. But the man who boldly dashes across the rooftops is no longer a weary freelance artist. Once more, he has become the living symbol of freedom. I'd hope I was wrong about that silhouette, but it's him all right, Dragon Man. I never went up against him myself, but I recall he gave Hercules a run for his money, Avengers 42. I'll have to approach him very carefully. According to the Avengers information file, his mind is even more childlike than the Hulk's. I don't understand why he would come here. Wait, that metal ball he's playing with is just like the one that was inside Strucker's robot. Maybe I have been followed. But as Cap draws near, the shiny metal ball suddenly switches frequencies, producing an ultra wave that is less soothing. So much for approaching him carefully. I don't know what that flying ball's done, but it certainly set him off. I have to lure him away from here. This is a heavily residential area. If he keeps ripping buildings apart, there's no telling how many people could get hurt. Indeed, at that very moment below the battle, and you can see two people here. I mean, John Byrne had to draw this whole room, and I just kind of marvel at some of the in-between panels that the artists, how a lot of artists would just depict these two people in bed with like a plain background. They wouldn't have anything in the background. Just kind of a blank wall. The Dragon Man busts in. Before the couple can budge from their beds, the great tale is followed by several tons of raging fury. Another great John Byrne panel. Oh no, civilians. The woman screamed, distracted Dragon Man for a second, but it was enough for me to leap away. Now I better get myself between Big Gray and those folks before he notices them. Hurry, get out of here. There's that bouncing ball again. And by the way Dragon Man's reacting, it must be putting him in excruciating pain, driving him crazy in that case. If I take it out, he should be easier to handle, but even as Cap hurls his shield, I like the texture that he's got here that Byrne puts on the shield. Nobody draws Cap's shield as well as John Byrne. Gadget 12 sensors detects its danger and zips out of harm's way, so that the starred and striped disc strikes a somewhat larger target. Dragon Man reacts in typical fashion, but finds the indestructible shield to be more than he can handle as Dragon Man tries to bite the shield. And so, no. Seconds later, at 5,000 feet, ground control, did you see that? See what? Never mind. It was probably just a weather balloon or something. So Dragon Man flings the shield up, and it hit seconds later at 5,000 feet. Meanwhile, back down at rooftop level, the suddenly shieldless Avenger throws himself into desperate dash. At least I bought a few seconds to get to safety. Now I'd better get out of here. The way Dragon Man keeps after me, I'm endangering the entire neighborhood. I forgot about his flame breath. Wait, He's not directing it at me, but at that flying sphere. That blasted ball is like a bad penny. Something tells me I'm not going to be able to shake it. Not the way it keeps zipping around so that I'm between it and the Dragon Man. Ignoring his own personal danger, Cap vaults over the fire and doubles back, luring the maddened beast on. Just as I'd hope, he tore right into the water tower. A few apartments might get waterlogged, but at least the fire's out. And Dragon Man's been slowed down enough I can maybe put a little distance between us. Good Lord, his speed even greater than I suspected. Looks like I'm the one who's slowing down. If only I had my shield. At that moment, as an answer to Cap's wish, his mighty shield comes plummeting down from the heavens with unfortunate results. What? So Captain America's distracted. That shield hitting the chimney with such velocity distracted me at just the wrong time. Dragon Man's got me. And a very cool panel. Two great hands close around the Avengers midsection like a vice as the buzzing in the Dragon Man's head grows more and more shrill. Driven to a state of utter frenzy, the huge beast tightens his grip, begins to squeeze the very life from the body of Captain America. We sincerely suggest that you do not miss our next issue, Death Comes Calling. And a great panel here of Dragon Man squeezing and the anguish on Cap's face. I love it. Really cool. All right. Let's just move on to the next. I'm in suspense, even though I've read this comic book. I've read this comic book 50 times at least. It's been a while. It's been a few years. I remember when I first got my Marvel Unlimited subscription, like 3 or 4 years ago. This is one of the first comic books. This is one of the first like run of comic books that I looked up and kind of reread. So it's been a couple years since I've read it, but I've gone through it. It hasn't been decades or anything. I've read it, since. Yeah, but man, this is just some great issues. The whole 9-issue run of this is just, there isn't a bad issue to be had. But I just can't cover them all. But and these 3 aren't even my favorite. There's another one I'm kind of torn. There's another 2-issue storyline in the 9-issue run that I was kind of torn between. I was juggling which one I should cover. But I came to the conclusion there's another little 2-issue run after this where he fights Mr. Hyde and Batroc on the New York harbor. And the stakes are very high, but it's an awesome 2 issues, and but here we go, issue 249, right before the famous 250 issue, kind of like anniversary issue 250. The next issue after this is the one where they try to convince Captain America to run for president. It's just a 1-issue story off, but it's a really good issue, but I just didn't want to cover it. There's not a lot of action in the issue. It's more just a lot of dialogue and what would happen if Captain America considered a run for like an independent party for president. And I guess the writers for Captain America all throughout the 70s all wanted to kind of tackle that. They kind of wanted to implement that story into Captain America. And the powers that be at Marvel said, nah, that's just a little ridiculous. Captain America runs for president. Well, I guess Roger Stern said that they kind of took that idea and said, we're gonna do it as a 1 story off, and we're gonna present it to Jim Shooter and see what he thought. But we're not gonna actually have him it's not gonna be like an ongoing story where he's running for president. It's just like a 1-part, 1-issue story of what would happen if somebody tried to convince Captain America to run for president. It's a really good issue. But Jim Shooter okayed it. You got to remember at this point in time, with deadlines, Jim Shooter's big priority at Marvel was making sure deadlines were being met. And he wanted to shy away from the big, long story arcs. Now, of course, he's letting Claremont do whatever in the X-Men. You know, the X-Men have this big, long story arcs. I mean, he's not going to upset the golden, the X-Men is the big seller. At this point, the X-Men have started. This is late 1980. We're almost into 1981. At this point, the X-Men is the Marvel's number one selling book. So Jim Shooter's basically going to give them free reign to do whatever they want. But he has said on record that he was trying to he was trying to rein in the other comic books and try to keep the big, long story arcs to a minimum. It's Cap smashes through. It's another John Byrne and Joseph Rubinstein awesome cover. As you can see, Machine Smith, and here's the robots that were depicted in the earlier issue. So this is going to wrap up the little 3-issue story arc here. Death, where is thy sting? I don't think that's what they said the name of the title was going to be in the last issue, but I think it was When Death Comes Calling, but this is Death, where is thy sting? So not sure what happened there. After a long and weary day, Captain America came home to Brooklyn Heights only to have his evening interrupted by the multi-ton terror called Dragon Man. Once again, it's the rehashing of last issue is what I'm trying to say. Which they don't always do that, but normally they'll rehash what came before, just in case the reader might be reader's first issue to pick up. And then Cap's luck really turned bad, and I like this little Captain America shield thing. Roger Stern, John Byrne, writer, co-plotters, penciler. Joe Rubinstein is still the inker. That would be the case for the entire, I believe that was the case for the entire 9-issue run. And there's a story behind that, which I will cover in part 2, because I still haven't gotten to why Roger Stern and John Byrne left after 9 issues. Especially when things were going so well for Captain America. Arg, it's no use. I can't get any leverage in this position. There's no way I can break Dragon Man's grip. My ribs are starting to give. I have to distract him. Only one way to do that. With a skill rivaling that of any major league pitcher, Cap lines up his shot and lets fly his leather gauntlet, hitting the one sensitive area on Dragon Man's body. And he smacks him in the eye with his heavy gauntlets. It worked just in time. I couldn't have held out much longer. I hated doing that, though. Dragon Man isn't really responsible for his action. He's like some big kid. It's that blasted flying metal ball that's caused all of this. And it looks as if somebody's viewing this through a view screen. I love this texture, though, with the lines going through. But it's a robot eye. Yeah, exactly. It's still a robot eye. Captain America hated doing that. Yeah, I'm sure he hated having his ribs cracked more. But here it comes after me again. I'm not sure how that thing works, but I'm going to have to stop it before it works Dragon Man up to another frenzy. Managed to evade my shield when I threw it, but maybe if I can lure it closer. Suddenly, Cap wheels around, swinging his shield about in one fast, devastating arc. Got it. Now let's see if I can talk Dragon Man down to a relative calm state. Everything's all right, big fella. Nobody here wants to hurt you. I'll help you if I can. Slowly, the towering figure shakes his head. The bad noise has stopped. The pain is gone. The man with the metal disc is talking to him gently. He fought the man, but why? Then he remembers it was because of the shiny ball that made the bad noise, the shiny ball that the bald man Machine Smith had used on him. And suddenly he remembers where Machine Smith is. Uh-oh. I don't know what's in his mind, but definitely mad about something. That gives me a problem. I can't lose him now. If he goes on another rampage, there's no telling who could be hurt. Besides, I'm certain that the metal ball, which had stirred him up, is somehow connected with the powers behind the Baron Strucker robot I fought this morning. Dragon Man is my only real lead in this mess. Unfortunately, he's picking up speed and pulling away from me. I sure could make good use of Avengers Quinjet right now. The shiny ball, like the shiny bald head of the bad man. But since there isn't one handy, I guess I'll just have to improvise. Snatching up the clothesline on the run, Cap ties a quick slip knot and, holding his breath, makes a fast, desperate cast. We have a little silhouette. This is John Byrne saving time. I have a feeling. Saving time. I do know. I can reveal this. When John Byrne, here I go. I'm going to try not to get on too much of a tangent here. When John Byrne and Roger Stern took this book over, they were already behind schedule, deadline wise. Like I had said before, Roger Stern said in the interview, I resigned my position as the editor on the book. Jim Salicrup came in, and he goes, I wasn't happy with the stories I was getting as the editor of the book. He said some were good, but some weren't worthy of what he thought Captain America was, deserved as a character. So he said, I'm going to resign my editorial position. I'm going to become head writer. And he did. And he said, but he's at the time, he said they were desperately behind deadlines. And he knew John Byrne was the master at making deadlines. And he said John Byrne had the best work ethic he had ever seen of like a comic book artist. Like John Byrne would do whatever it took. He would stay up all day and he would work day and night to meet a deadline, and he'd really get into it because he took pride in every assignment that he had. He wanted to make it the best he could. And sometimes that brings out the worst in people. And Roger Stern said he never had a problem working with John Byrne, and he had heard all the horror stories of how difficult he is. He goes, the problem is people didn't know how to work with John Byrne, not that John Byrne didn't know how to work with other people. So basically, you can't micromanage. He said in a nutshell, he kind of said you can't micromanage John Byrne. You just got to let him go, unleash him, and let him into the creative process as much as you can. See, none of these people know that Steve Rogers is Captain America. He keeps his identity, under wraps. And, this is the strangest fire I've ever seen, Josh. I wonder how it started. I don't know, Bernie. Let's wait around for Mike. Maybe he'll know. Yeah, his neighbor is a firefighter. Well, Mike, what's the word? We were real lucky, apparently. Nobody was hurt. Of course, we won't know until we sift through the wreckage, but things look good. And hey, you won't believe this, but witnesses claim the blaze was started by a big monster that was chasing Captain America. A monster? Captain America here? I hope Steve wasn't hurt in any of that. We haven't been able to find him. Isn't that something? They say some big dragon was after him, tossing chunks of masonry around like they were marble. Yeah, I think Steve's got himself a one-woman fan club here. Hey, come back, Bernie. I was just kidding. He's right. I guess I do care about Steve. You just met him, you hoe. It's like that thing with Mick Gordon and the Doom guys. You'll have to fill me in. I know what you're talking about on, like, the surface level. But isn't that the music? Didn't that have something to do with the controversy of the music of Doom? I vaguely remember looking at that. But I don't know the details of it. Yeah, you bring it up. Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, you can bring it up now. I don't care. This is unedited off the cuff, man. Yeah, it's the guy that did the music. I thought that was right. I remember vaguely. I was interested in it, but I didn't at the moment. I think I might have been at work when I saw somebody post about that. It might have been in your Discord. I can't remember. Sometimes I don't get very long on breaks, so sometimes I just go through real quick, look at stuff, and then it'll stick. It'll stick in my memory a little bit, but I don't know the details. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I get sidetracked. Okay, yeah, we see Byrne here already has some feelings for Steve Rogers, even though she just met him this evening. I mean, it's Captain America, Steve Rogers, though. Okay, Steve Rogers finds himself just a few hundred feet over a remote rural area and dropping fast. Remote rural area, that's weird. There is a lot of rural area in New York. People don't realize that. A lot of farmland in New York. Looks like Big Gray is about to come in for a landing. I better do the same. And I don't want to end up as a red, white, and blue smear. I love that picture right there. A simple rolling tumble should eat up my momentum and bring me down to a more manageable speed. There. Now to catch up with Dragon Man. Yeah, sometimes I get off on tangents too much when the story is what matters. Barely 500 feet ahead of the Avenger, Dragon Man touches down, strides menacingly towards a simple country barn, and gains entrance. Cool panel there by John Byrne. Great Scott, he ripped that whole end of the barn apart as if it were made of paper. Wait a minute, where's he disappearing to? Curiouser and curiouser. No barn ever had a substructure like this. Already far below ground, the Dragon Man stalks the huge corridors looking for his prey, and before too long. Wow, what a cool... I forgot all about this panel. He finds it. Dragon Man comes crashing through. What? Dragon Man, you're not supposed to be here. Where's the little gadget I had guiding you? You would think Machine Smith would know that the gadget was destroyed, but anyway. Drat. I knew I should have kept closer tabs on the two of you. Yeah, well, that explains it. Dragon Man pays little heed to the Machine Smith's raving. He simply smashes his way onward, ever onward, with mayhem on his mind. It's kind of weird. He's got Magneto and the Thing, and this character here looks like one of Galactus's heralds called Gabriel, the Airwalker, who's on par with like Silver Surfer. He's one of the original heralds of Galactus, along with Fire Lord and Silver Surfer. Not sure why he'd have a robot of Gabriel there, but that might not be Gabriel. I don't know. It looks, that was the first thing that popped into my head. Guess it doesn't matter. From out of the very wall shoot 3 identical metal spears, gleaming silvery balls, obedient to Machine Smith's every thought. What do you think you're doing? You cannot harm me. Gadgets 8, 9, and 10, front and center. Teach this brute a lesson. Each of them packing a charge of over 500,000 volts. And they electrocute Dragon Man, dropping him. You poor, feeble-minded beast. Why did you have to threaten me? You hadn't a chance of winning. I prepare for everything. What? Everything, mister? Are you prepared for me? Nice little ricochet shot in the form of a star there, and knocks out all his gadgets 8, 9, and 10. My gadgets, my poor little gadgets. No. That's lesson number 1. No amount of preparation is enough to cover every single eventuality. I suppose this is where I'm supposed to gasp. It's Captain America in the best villainous tradition. Fella, I don't care what you call me. Believe me, I've been called plenty of things in my time. I don't doubt that, Captain. Still, I should warn you, Machine Smith is not one to be trifled with. Machine Smith, is it? Well, Mr. Smith, I think you and I should have a few words. Judging from the equipment lining on the walls, I guess that you're the man behind the robots I've fought recently, right? You are partially correct, sir. Both the ersatz, Baron Strucker, and the manipulator were my creations. But as to me being a man, click. The mystery deepens. Good Lord, you're a robot too? Ha ha ha. So even the great Captain America can be taken by surprise. Excellent. You'll do just fine. Ha ha, click. I hope you'll forget my little joke, Captain. But you see, I do prepare for everything. Well, almost everything. Surprise, surprise. Surprise. Oh, no. Whoa, he almost caught me napping with that little diversion. It's clobbering time. The thing. I can see right now I have to stay on my toes around here. Smith has activated a small army of partially assembled robots. It's clobbering time. It's clobbering time. It's one side oaf. Magneto shall crush this avenging idiot under his own shield. Click. Incredible. I don't know how the Machine Smith does it, but he has half of these robots actually acting like the people they're built to mimic. Still, I have one big advantage. They're not completely assembled. I'll never have been able to use a fully functional Magneto against an operational Spider-Man this way. Likewise, the real thing or even a reasonable facsimile would have been much harder to trash than this headless wonder. You best give up now, Machine Smith. This Erector Set squad won't hold me back for long. Oh, too bad. How about nice strong omnium steel? Nice strong omnium steel door then. Ta-ta. I can't let him escape. In his own way, he's a bigger menace than Dragon Man. Why didn't they use adamantium or osmium? Osmium. I wonder if he meant to say osmium because that's what Colossus is. Never mind. The robot wasn't much of a fighter. Let's see how he does as a doorstop. Ah, perfect. Blazes, this underground complex must go on for miles. I better stop Machine Smith before he disappears on me. Who knows what horrors he might unleash next. Two bold strides, Cap launches himself down the corridor after the fleeing robot maker. I have underestimated you, Captain. You're even more capable than I believed. I know all about me, Machine Smith. It's you I want to know more about. As I said before, let's talk. Yes, you'd like a confession from the villain of this piece, wouldn't you? Well, why not? I'm not new to this role, you see, Captain. I once assumed the role of Mr. Fear to battle Daredevil high over New York. Alas, that's a long time ago. That's back in the 60s, that issue. Alas, my combat prowess was not the equal of my mechanical skills. I forgot to account for the imbalance of two combatants on a pitching flying platform. Unhappily, I slipped. He fell to his death the way he meant for me to go. This is an old flashback of an old Daredevil issue. I'm afraid I didn't land very well. Unfortunately, I had programmed my earliest robots to preserve my life at any cost. They found me in a lonely alley before the spark of life had fled. What? Do you honestly expect me to believe that you survived a fall like that without any protection at all? Every word of it is the truth, Captain. After all, I'm here, aren't I? Click. Another robot. Or am I over here behind you? Not again. Is that the real Machine Smith or just another robot? Is there a real Machine Smith? Arg, like a Terminator hand robot. This is pre-Terminator, though. I must be getting tired. This is twice he's caught me with the same blasted diversion. Embarrassed by his show of weakness, Cap angrily throws off robotic stranglehold and is immediately beset from all sides. Man, John Byrne's just killing it. You can tell John Byrne enjoys drawing Captain America. I can, at least. These little guided muscles aren't too much of a threat. Muscles. Too much of a threat, but they are keeping me busy. I don't get it. Why doesn't Machine Smith get out of here? Does he want me to catch him? Running out of Robot Smith? These spare parts won't stop me. Frankly, Captain, I'd be surprised if they did. Oh, this is splendid. I haven't had an opportunity to observe a fighting man up close in years. Of late, I've relied on robot cameras and simulacrum robots like your Baron Strucker. Seeing you in the flesh like this, why I can almost understand why the tabloids persist in calling your kind superheroes. Oh, shall I tell you more of my story while you fight? I know why you doubted my deathfall story. I would have doubted it myself. I haven't experienced it. But happened it did. I shall never forget the sight that greeted me upon regaining consciousness. My first thought that was that I was having some sort of delirium. But then the odd shapes began to resolve themselves into recognizable forms, those of my worker robots. I remember I felt very well, even strong enough. I had this incredible sense of detachment, and then I lifted my hand to my face, but it was no longer my hand. Oh, this is cool. These are cool panels right here. I wonder how much input Roger Stern had on like how John Byrne were to, how much input he gave him when they were crafting the script and the plot on how to depict these panels. My robots had obeyed their prime directive and preserved my life in the only way they knew. My body had been battered beyond any hope of recovery. So they had programmed, recorded my mind. In effect, I became a living robot. It was almost more than my mind could bear, but I learned to live with it. I put my expertise to work and created a score of robots. Some self-sustaining models, like the manipulator, were for my own amusement. Other simpler robots I leased or sold to as entrepreneurs. They provided the capital to maintain my labs and eventually to construct a more human appearance for my new identity, Machine Smith. See Avengers 178 and Cap 242 Salacrup. What a story. If it's true, it explains a lot. Machine Smith awoke to find he was no longer human. It must have driven him mad. I think you've heard enough for now, Captain. Let's end this, shall we? The super thick barrier is either an act of desperation or a trap. Whatever the case, I have to get through. I have to get through before it slams shut. His sinewy legs flexing like coiled springs, Cap dives through the rapidly narrowing space. Wish I could shake this freaking cold. But as the meter-thick mass of metal slams shut behind him, 3 strikes, Captain, you're out. Click. Blast. How am I ever going to stop a man who can switch his mind from one body to another? Do I have to smash every single robot he ever built? Wonder how many of these things he has left. Oh, no. Why, whatever is the matter, Captain? Don't tell me that a living legend such as yourself is worried about a little thing like an army of machine smiths. What money won't buy, eh? But enough of this mad hilarity. Attack. I don't believe it. He can spread his mind out over a dozen or more robots. My, he certainly is a slippery one, but unfortunately we can take it, can't we? But you've discovered that already, haven't you, Cappy? We don't fly apart the way the other machine smiths did. We were built for situations such as this. I think we've made him angry. I can't believe Smith would program other robots to act just like him. He must be slipping from one body to another. What keeps the other robots up in the meantime? What? You're a reasonable man, Captain. Why not give up now before you fall from the sheer weight of our numbers? They seem to be fighting the hardest when I get closer to that computer bank. They're protecting it. I know. Pour whiskey in it and kill Mechagodzilla. Yeah. I'll just bet that. Oh, jeez. I'll just bet that the computer is directing the robots that Machine Smith isn't inhabiting. Give up, old boy. Sorry, Mr. Smith, but I never give up. Hey, where are you? He's headed for the Central Synapse System. Stop him. Central Synapse System. That sounds like what I'm after. If I'm right, smashing this should make them fall down except for one. That one will be Machine Smith, hopefully trapped in one body as the control panel blows up. But once the shockwave subsides, what? They all fell down. Then the real Machine Smith got away. No, I'm afraid you're mistaken, Cap. It's quite impossible for me to get away. Actually, I've been here the whole time. But I see you're confused. Allow me to explain. Remember how I said my robots had program recorded my mind? So they did, but into this computer. You said you'd become a living robot. No, I said that in effect, I'd become one. A bit of a half-truth, I'm afraid. You see, to give me mobility, my cybernetic circuits microbeam me into the bodies. I'm never quite all there. This is the Matrix fight with Neo. Yeah. Even after I had developed a more human looking body, I knew I was living the most outrageous lie imaginable. Living. Ha! I was just existing. I remember one day I decided that death would be preferable. It would be simple, I thought. Just smash the computer and be done with it. Unfortunately, the prime directive to preserve my life was too ingrained in my cybernetic systems. No matter how I tried, I couldn't kill me. Eventually, I reasoned that my only hope lay in men, in heroes such as yourself. And every bit of data I compiled told me that if anyone could find a way to defeat me, it was Captain America. You use me to commit suicide? Yes, I am sorry, Captain. I know how dedicated you yourself are to the preservation of life in its many forms, but believe me, there are cases in which the quality of life falls so low it becomes little more than a crude mockery of what life should be. I knew you would not willingly end my life, so trickery was my only resort. But be of good heart, sir. You have not truly taken a life. Perhaps you have even saved a soul. Click. I wish I could believe, as the computer burns up, I wish I could believe that, Smith. I really do, but I just can't. Maybe there's something to what you said, but I've seen too many deaths in my time, too many lives wasted needlessly. I'll never stop believing that life is something more sacred, something to be sacrificed only for the greatest of causes, liberty. Next issue, Captain America for president. So the whole time, the Machine Smith's motives were to lure Captain America here and to have him actually destroy the centralized computer, which his own cybernetic instincts couldn't allow himself to have his robots destroy. Pretty cool. I just love John Byrne's design of these rehashed events of the Machine Smith trying to, in essence, commit suicide there. So there's the first three. Let me go back here. That's the first three assisted suicide, man. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of Roger Stern, kind of a twist. I don't know how familiar people are with Roger Stern. Roger Stern had a big, long run in the mid-'80s with Spider-Man, starting actually kind of toward I think he went from Captain America to taking over the writing duties of Spider-Man, and he had an extended run on Spider-Man. He was the one that was writing the book when he took over the black costume with a first appearance in the Amazing. When I say Spider-Man, I mean the flagship Amazing Spider-Man book. But Roger Stern had that long run that dealt with the Hobgoblin and stuff like that, and he was known for throwing in twists. He's kind of the M. Night Shyamalan of the Marvel universe, so to speak. But so these three issues aren't my favorite issues of this 9-issue run, but I thought I would just kind of I enjoy all 9. There's not a bad issue in any of the 9 issues. Let me go to the next. This is Captain America 250, which I'm not going to go over, but I am going to show the cover. He's the people's choice, Captain America for president. It's the 250 issue here. So kind of like the landmark 250 issue. They don't make a big deal as the 50s issues as they do with like Captain America 200 or Spider-Man 300. You know, the OBS is disconnected. I had my usual midnight, almost on the dot midnight hiccup of my internet on the weekends. It's just a thing that happens. It always drops for like just a couple seconds. But that's the classic issue. Now, all 9 of these issues that Stern and Byrne, Joseph Rubenstein did. You can get them in a hard collection, what they call trade paperback, and then it's also in a hardcover edition of all 9 issues. It's called War and Remembrance, Captain America: War and Remembrance, and it's 247 to issue number 255. What I'm going to be covering in part 2 of this, since I've already gone an hour and 50 minutes, I don't have the time to cover 2 more issues. But tomorrow night, I'm going to cover my favorite 2 issues of the 9-issue run, and where old Cap goes to merry old England, and it's a cool 2-issue storyline where Cap kind of revisits some of his past and runs into some old, interacts with some old Invaders characters that are now old because Captain America hasn't aged, and they are elderly. And it's kind of interesting, to have those interactions. They're still in disbelief that Captain America, their ally from World War II, has only aged a few years. And here they are, they're now in their 70s, so it makes kind of an interesting story. And they bring back an old villain, and it's kind of a murder mystery type 2-part thing. And it's my absolute favorite 2 issues of the 9-issue run. So, but I enjoyed the Baron Strucker. Machine Smith little storyline as well, and I like the way that they kind of was trying to tie up some loose continuity issues that some of the readers had been writing in and had issue with Captain America. So that some of the writers had sloppily, put into the book over the past decade or so. So anyway, that's going to wrap up this episode. But and thanks for hanging out. Like assisted suicider, man. But the next episode I do tomorrow night will finish up my revisiting these epic Captain America. And Captain America, in my opinion, hasn't ever been better than these 9 issues. So, and I was sad when John Byrne and Roger Stern left the book just after the 9 issues, after I'd gotten myself invested in buying Captain America every month. And then, unfortunately, the book went downhill. And then it kind of came back a little bit when J.J. DeMatteis and Mike Zeck took the book over. It kind of sparked some new life, but it never reached the level of the Roger Stern, John Byrne 9-issue run. So anyway, I'm gonna sign off here, and I am gonna play some Evil West. So thanks for hanging out, and like I said, you can catch my rambling, my unedited spur of the moment ramblings on the Spotify audio version as well.